Today, my guest is Kaylee Mcmahon. She is a real estate broker and an apartment syndicator based in Dallas, Texas. In just a minute, we're going to talk with Kaylee about how to create independence through real estate. But first, a quick reminder, if you like the show, CREPN Radio, we would love to hear from you. You can like, you can share, you can subscribe, and always, we love to read your comments. Also, if you'd like to see how attractive our guests are, be sure to check out our YouTube channel, and that's Commercial Real Estate Pro Network. With that, I want to welcome my guest. Kaylee, welcome to CREPN Radio.
Thank you for having me.
Well, thank you for appearing, and I'm really looking forward to talking to you today. Before we get started, if you could just take a minute and share with the listeners a little bit about your background.
Sure. So I know a little bit about a lot. So I'm not going to take everybody through all the things. But I'm somebody that has to constantly be learning. So that's why I've done several different things and gone, I know the majority, or if not majority, how to do whatever it is well, and I get bored and I move on. So multifamily has been where I am now, and that's a place where I'm still learning every day. Like, there's never probably going to be a point in time where I'll know it all, honestly. I mean, I'm getting better at it and better at it and better at it, just being from like the safety side of things, but started basically doing a bunch of different things: advertising, building dental practices, going into real estate as an agent, real estate as a broker, flipping houses, now flipping apartments. So I guess that's the short story.
Got it. So you mentioned you've done a lot of different things, talking about in real estate, going from being an agent. Were you an agent first, and then you got into buying and was it flipping? Was that the kind of the entry level, or? Okay.
So like an agent, then flipping, then a
Okay.
broker.
Okay. And when you were flipping single family, was it single family properties?
Yes.
Gotcha. So let me ask you, what was the attraction to the multifamily side of things?
Um, that's kind of a longer story, and I want to be brief. I'm working on this, right? Being succinct. So really, it came in a point in time when I was flipping single family, and I hated it. I hated it. Hated it. Like, I'm like, why am I begging grown men to take my checks and to not finish what they're doing? Like, this doesn't make sense. I'm paying you to do your job. Do it. I think that's pretty simple, but I'm someone that works really hard, and I believe that I earn every dollar I make. It's not ever like given to me. So, but I guess a lot of people are not like that. And especially when there's a high demand for flipping houses. And so contractors could pick up a job any day. It's not that their job is scarce at all. So they're like, they can just jack you around. And so anyway, I really didn't enjoy, every Friday, where's my check? Where's my check? And I'm like, I don't know. The plumbing doesn't work. You're not getting paid. And I hated having to micromanage people. I hated having to be the big boss biatch, like, I'm like, why can't you just do your job? So at that time, I was going from brokerage owner, well, actually, so agent to flipping, and it's kind of the same time starting a brokerage. So kind of taking these transition steps, and I don't know, my brain works 100 times faster than the average person. So I have to control it and do maybe two things at a time. And, most people can only do one. But anyway, I'm a little different. So at this time, it was, okay, we're going to have a brokerage license and go into multifamily real estate. And the reason was because of making that transition. I was put on a show. Propelio Network in Dallas is a free investor education network. And seeing a young female, whatever, going from this transition from residential or retail stuff to flipping houses, and then, they knew I was interested in multifamily, but there's a learning period. You can't just go for it. You have to kind of learn a lot. So it took me about a year and a half to learn enough to feel comfortable to start putting in LOIs and that stuff. So the show was cool because it was all females, and all of us on the investor panel were one does house notes, one does historical remodels, and she's 21 and has 15 crews of guys. One owns a title company. I was getting involved from a residential agent to broker, flipping houses. And so all of us had different perspectives on investing. Anyway, so it was cool to have me on there. But they had an event, or they do have events on their, well, it was monthly, and now it's once quarterly. So it's a really big fun meetup, and it's free booze and food, and everybody comes, and we have some speakers throughout the night. in Grapevine, Texas. So the last speaker of the night for this first one I went to, the first meetup I went to from this group, was Will Crozier, and on the, what do you call it, like syllabus, or the agenda for the night, the last speaker, his bio was Will Crozier, from stockbroker, $1 million house flipper in California, to $780 million assets under management in 8 years. And I was like, oh, I gotta see this guy. Like, this is me in 5 years right there. So I went and listened to him, and pretty much he's super, super humble. He doesn't like being in front of people. He's not, a big guru group that sells programs to people or anything like that. He just wants to be left alone. And so that was inspiring, but it just made sense because he explained how, in layman's terms, how the impact that I wanted to make by creating independence for people. So giving them a clean new space to live in if they were in an abusive situation like I was, if they were codependent, maybe didn't know that quite yet, because you live one life and you only know that life. You don't know what other people see looking in. So being able to have resources to kind of change your mindset and go, well, actually, like, my parents don't have to steal money from me, or I don't have to, be around people that drink and beat each other. I don't have, so creating a new space, real estate was allowing me to do that with single family. But I was like, it's going to take me a decade to have enough revenue, to have enough like physical space to write off. However, I want to structure a 501(c) organization. It's going to take me a lot longer. So with Will talking, he was like, okay, so economies of scale. You have 50 houses under one roof. You're buying supplies at half the cost. You're renovating at double the speed. You know what I mean? It just made more sense. And I felt like I could skyrocket and make a difference a lot faster with multifamily. So that was really my first, like, this just makes sense interest.
No, I love it. The just understanding the economies of scale and kind of recognizing the kind of a capacity limitation you have. If you're going after the single family thing, like multiple doors, multiple locations, and just even efficiencies. I know I've talked with others about if you have a multifamily and you've got everything that's the same color and the same scheme, you can buy, like you said, things in bulk, as opposed to you go to a bunch of different homes and everything's unique. And there you go.
Yeah. One roof, one foundation, one plumbing system, Yeah.
Yeah. No, you're singing to the choir there. So I wanted to ask you, so the event, or you'd mentioned the network thing. Can't read my notes here. Propellus? Is that what it was? Propellus Network?
Propelio.
Propelio?
Yeah, Propelio.
Did that give you like a springboard, bigger audience? Did you get a lot of exposure from that led to opportunities, or?
Yeah, it's not like I directly tracked it, but I mean, if you could look back at when I started doing that and then moving forward, it's interesting because at first, like, everyone identifies with you as somebody who's getting started. So that was always a big topic where it's like, Kaylee, how'd you get started in real estate? Kaylee, how'd you get started in flipping? Kaylee, how'd you get started doing the brokerage? Kaylee, how'd you get started in the multifamily? Like, everyone wants to see that start point. But what's so funny is it's almost not that it's fizzled out, but kind of like people, now that they see that this is not like a joke and this is like the long game, I'm going to be doing this for like ever. So, I mean, buying a property in itself takes 3-4 months or more sometimes, one time 9 months, it just depends on how things work. Then closing on it, then you start renovating, and you never start the first month. You're just doing the pro forma takeover stuff the first month. That, it's a long process. And so, people want to see that get started stuff, but then very few hang on to continue to pay attention as you move forward. So I think it was the right place at the right time. I was getting started in multifamily, and I needed people to pay attention. I needed people to see my why and understand me as a person. And so it really did help get me out there, and also help build confidence that people were interested in working with me. Because like, I know I'm a good person, but it just, you need some affirmation sometimes. So it really was a good, and Ryan was great. Ryan Harper, it's his organization. He really, even to this day, has really done me a solid. He just wants to bring me into things. And even when I wasn't comfortable, he had me speak at that meetup, about, at the time it was listings, because I was really good at listings. So he's like, what are you good at? Talk about, here's the 5 things you need to do to sell a listing the fastest, and just whatever it was. So yes, they did really help me in the beginning. And things always change, but those relationships stay over time. So Ryan and I are still great friends. And he is working on creating his own show now so that he owns all the content and whatnot. And so he's like, are you down to do another? I'm like, yeah, of course. So all I can do in return is obviously try to teach other people, especially ones that are getting started, just get on YouTube and go to their channel, because we literally spent so much time creating videos of how to protest your taxes and how to buy at this after repair value and the best way to market for foreclosures or whatever. We've done a video on like everything. So he was like, we just want to create a network where you don't have to sit there as a principal or an operator or whatever it is that you're busy chasing every day. You don't have to spend the time to walk someone through everything. It's like, here's all these videos. We've already gone through it. And then if you have questions, then let's talk. So I really like that. And I'm trying to create the same thing internally for my investors too. So they can either branch out on their own and get the confidence to do their own deals, or they know that we know what we're doing, so either way it helps. Yeah.
No, that's awesome. I appreciate you taking us through that. Let's talk a little bit about your multifamily investing experience and your syndication. How long have you been now doing multifamily?
This is year 2, and well, it'll soon be year 3, but yeah.
Okay. And so you've been acting as a broker and as a syndicator, or?
Yeah, separately though. So the brokerage is residential and we have agents, and so it doesn't at the moment do anything in commercial. It doesn't do anything. So, sometimes brokers will see that and they're like, I'm like, no, you get your fee. Like, I don't want any part of this. We're principals. That's it, So, yeah, they're separate. One, as a principal, it's commercial, and then residential, that's the brokerage.
Gotcha. And tell us a little bit about your experience in syndication here. How many properties have you done, or where are you at with your experience there?
We're working on property number 5 right now. So, well, actually technically 6. I just lumped my first 2 into one because that's how I operate them. It was 26, 24 units, like right around the corner from each other. So we use one maintenance man, one property manager, one everything, as far as even ordering supplies. We just delivered a huge order of LEDs and all the green program things that you need to put in to do water conservancy. So we just ordered those all in bulk at once, and I delivered them all to one office, and, David will take care of the rest. But, so I guess 6, but we're working on the 5th technically. So 5, 6-ish.
All right. So tell us about, the first one. What was are all of the investors, are they the same? Are you continuously raising money? What's your story there?
So I think you asked 2 questions, and one is about, continuously raising money and the first 2 deals. So the first 2 deals were like in tandem, like, is one going to close first, one going to close next? I'm not sure, because things kept coming up with like the roof was leaking or whatever, so you just have to kind of sometimes renegotiate, and holidays and whatever. So those were the most difficult things I've ever done. I mean, honestly, that raise, I did it all by myself for both buildings, because my partners, who were the people, so I didn't have the net worth at the time. I had the experience by following my mentors, reading tons of books, doing different programs, 2 conferences a month. I mean, as much as I can. I'm single, and so I poured my time into learning as much as I could. And so I had the experience by partnering with other people's experience. And obviously, too, my mentor still now, anytime he's like, just call me. You got a question? If I don't know, I know people that have been doing this for 40 years. And now I do too. I call them. I'm like, hey, what would you do in this situation? And most of the time, they're actually just wanting me to think it through on the phone with them. And then they're like, what would you do? And then I'll tell them. And probably 98% of the time, they're like, yeah, that's what I do. So it's cool, but I just want to have that springboard, or that, not springboard, but sounding board, if you will. So those first 2 deals, my partners were the net worth that we needed to close on the loan. Because in commercial or in multifamily, you have to have above a 650 credit score. You have to have more net worth than the deal itself, whether that's just you or you and partners together, pooled together. And you have to have over 10% post-closing liquidity in all partners' accounts. So I did need help on those first 2 deals to at least qualify for the lending, and then, raise the rest myself. And so it was a huge learning experience. And thank God I had Alex to call. But, and I also had to kind of get over myself a little bit too. That's something that it's really hard when I'm betting potential partners for the future, I mean, if they've got an ego or an attitude, you're out. Like, sorry. I mean, I have a ego when it comes to being mistreated. So if there's a broker that's cussing at me, or if there's a broker that is, I've been told, what is this Mickey Mouse crap that you're sending me, or you're amateur, or like calling, I'm like, you're out. Even the brokers, I won't work with people for 60, 90 days who are just rude, no, you're not going to close this deal then. No, thanks. But really, if we as people, besides that, I think that that's reasonable. We can kind of get over our egos. We can put everything on the table, eyes wide open, be honest, and do things with good ethics and good integrity. Those are really important things to me when we're doing something, for another team, or in their track record and stuff like that. So it's really important to me. I forgot what the question even was.
No, you're taking us kind of through the first, and then also you're raising capital, kind of thing there.
So I needed those partners to do those deals, and then raising capital. I am continuously raising capital. That's something I've learned. My banker is trying to get me to kind of go institutional right now. So we have written up a business plan. We have a slide deck that's on our company, and we have all these different people that are in positions to make the company run. We're scaling and on right now. But I don't know if I'm comfortable going institutional, because friends of mine that have medical companies or whatever, they're like, I don't care how great your operating agreement is. I don't care what lawyers you have. These guys have so much money that they can basically hire whatever lawyer to figure out how to take over this project. And I honestly like the fact that when you work with individuals, friends and family, those people that I know, they get to make great returns, that they really can't get elsewhere. So it's nice seeing people that I know benefiting versus, splitting it 50-50 with a bank or whatever, or a big entity like that. So I am raising capital, but to do it with people, I have to continuously build those relationships, whether there's a deal, not a deal. Actually, I can't make relationships while there's a deal. But basically the process is still ongoing. So taking the company, talking about the company, asking people, okay, what are you looking for? What are your goals? Here's what we're looking for. And if they're in alignment, let's put you on our subscription list, so that when there is a deal that meets all of our criteria, then we're going to hit you up and we're going to move forward, so constantly building those relationships.
So are you in a particular market? Are all of your properties in the same general area, or how are you?
No, I mean, they're mostly in Texas. And when I'm looking for the next deal, that's the only market I'm looking at. Because so far, not everybody, there's a couple guys in Denver, a couple guys in LA, a couple guys in Florida, different places. But for the most part, my investors are Texas people. And it's a comfort level thing, because I'm a newer operator. I haven't been doing this 10 plus years. So I feel like, if they're able to drive by it and go like touch it, smell it, feel it, like they know it's a real thing, they have more confidence. Okay, this is great. And then obviously we do SEC offerings, regulated offerings. So it's out there. If I screw up, everybody knows for sure. And then we obviously have SEC attorneys that do all the paperwork and documents and whatnot. So you just want to build a comfort level with people until I have a long-standing track record. Then I could do whatever. But everything is in Texas except for one property. And this one was an accident, if you will. So I had a group of guys that I knew from so many different conferences, and there are other operators, and they were part of a big like guru group, if you will, and kind of left. And then they were doing their own deal on their own. So basically, they kind of were a little self-conscious about being able to finish a raise on a project that they were doing. And one of my passive investors kept reaching out to them. They're like, call Kaylee. I did have some people that didn't make it into the last deal because their IRAs and 401ks just took so long to fund that I was like, sorry guys, like you can't make it in. So I had some people that wanted something to do with this money they had moved over. So I offered to them, I can help. And but to do that legally as a Reg D 506B offering, you have to change the operating agreement, you have to change the PPM, you have to change all the things. And so by the time that they did it, it was like down to the wire, before I could start reaching back out to people. So I was able to help at a really small level. I think I only raised like 400K or 300K or something, not much, because it was so fast. But luckily last minute, one of the guys, he has a group of investors from Japan. and he's Japanese, so his family lives in Japan as well. And he was just freaking out because he's like, these wires aren't in. I don't know how that feels like right now. Every minute's precious, So, anyway, they ended up wiring like 1.2 million in like one day. They finished the documents and wired, and it just took them a while. So we closed on time. It was awesome, but I just had a call with Yoshi last week, and I need to fly out there because I kind of keep our mutual investors updated on it, but that's the only one that's not in Texas. So with the Texas ones, I can just drive there. You know what I mean? With that one, I do have to fly out there. So we do have a local boots on the ground person at every property. That one is Jack, and he's there locally and kind of sends us pictures and videos, and we have a Slack channel that we keep each other updated on. And my investors are like, we need a video from you. I'm like, okay, so I'll go take it in January once phase one has really kicked off on the east wing of the apartments. So.
And where is this other property that's not in Texas?
It's Phoenix. It's
Phoenix?
actually it's the flats at 2030 off Indian School Road. So it's like right on the edge of the ghetto. But that's okay. I'll do the edge.
Gotcha. So you've it sounds like you're definitely well versed in raising capital. Do you also, do you have a team then you work with as far as like analyzing the deal and kind of thinking it through, or is that your kind of go-to strength as far as the team goes, as far as raising money, or do you do it all?
It changes deal to deal. Like when I did my first two, I was key principal, so I had to do everything. Like, found them, underwrote them, did due diligence, hired all the teams, vetted all the people that are on those teams, like just all the things. Teed up the insurance quotes, engaged the legal team, contracts, negotiating back and forth. Whenever I talk to people about creating a future team, I'm like, all right, here's like 7 things that I can't do it all. If you could bring one of those strengths, that would be awesome. Like whether you bring the deal or you bring the money or you're a really good negotiator, or I forget you're in charge of construction and due diligence or whatever, we could piece it out and have the person focus on their strength. So I have done it all before, and it took me so long to do those that I was like, there's no way that I'm going to meet my goals. I had a goal this year of hitting 1,000 units, and there's no way I'm going to hit that goal. Not even close if I'm trying to do it all myself. So again, with that mind shift thing, it's a team sport. You have to lean on other people and just find people that are experienced and good at doing something. So on each of these deals that I've done with other partners, each set of roles is all completely different. One thing that I have found that I'm strong at and confident with too is I'm good with people. So as far as capital raising, that's something that comes easy and is enjoyable. I don't mind asking for people's money. If I believe in the deal and I'm putting my money in the deal, like it's not a sales pitch. It's like, hey, here's what I'm doing and here's why. And if it doesn't fit your criteria, cool, I don't care. But if it does, cool, I want to help you, So that, and then after closing, so post-closing, coming kind of back in and having a CapEx plan. So usually I have to talk to the teams and go, okay, this is an idea that we have on the CapEx. Well, what do you think about, adding in this? And it's something that makes it more of a community-oriented place. So if there's a lot of families having, picnic bench, if there's a lot of pergolas and grills, we're not slumlords. And so we do need to put things in so the residents can enjoy where they live. And that's my focus after closing. We'll have like monthly events, like movie nights, or we did a grill out this summer after we built grills on my properties in West Texas. And it was an opportunity for me to go, okay, I'm just a regional person from property management because I don't want them calling me. What would you rather pay for? Would you rather pay for these storage units we're going to put in? Do you need those? Or would you rather pay for carports? And so they gave us some good feedback, and we changed our CapEx plan a little bit, so that's good. You want to provide things to them that they enjoy and they'll use and pay for. So I like that.
Yeah, no, there's nothing or no substitute for, asking the question of what they'll pay for as opposed to thinking it's a great idea and you find out they don't want it. So that's good.
I don't know it all.
Yeah, no, that's great. I was going to ask you, so is value add kind of your go-to? Are you doing value add properties? Is that pretty much the strategy?
That's all I'm comfortable with right now. Like I'm getting pressure right now from a couple guys in Dallas that have a bunch of land in Fort Worth, and it's a great area and they want to develop it. So they're doing new construction, and I just don't know enough. So I keep being like, no, and I haven't said no yet. Actually, what I've done instead is I've given them a battery of questions, like who's signing on the loan? Why is this person's name in here? How do we even provide our our equity partners with cash if it doesn't cash flow day one? What happens when the market tanks and we get this rate of return? What do we do then? And I have a million questions. And so, I mean, if they can answer all of them, I might consider it, but I really just don't feel comfortable with it. And it's such a long process. Like for us, it's a tight time frame trying to make sure that we're raising and closing and all this stuff. But once we close, it's cash flowing day one. Like I have not done a project that is under occupied, if you will, or super vacant, because we want to be able to give distributions to our equity partners while we're holding it. And then if we cash out refi, they get another check. When we sell, they get another check. So I feel like that just makes more sense. And when things do change in the market and renters move around, they're not going to be hanging out in the A class. They're not going to be hanging in the B plus class. They're going to come to us. There's no supply and there's high demand. It's only going to increase. So it's a good space to be in. C minus, C plus, B minus, not quite B plus yet, but we are going to renovate one to make it B plus, because in the neighborhood it's in, it needs to be there to realize our exit price. Anyway, so.
Got it. Hey, one of the things that I had read and kind of picked up on was the thought of independence that real estate can give you. I was kind of curious if you could speak a little bit to that and how you see real estate providing independence.
Yeah. So, like I was saying earlier, being able to actually afford physical space and to like live alone. So for me, being able to, so it just started as being an agent. I didn't realize being an agent, and people I'm teaching now, because I've done a little bit of a lot, even in real estate, just to try it out, or I have friends that do something full time. I pick their brains, kind of have an idea of how it works. So, for example, you have to make like a nut. You have to make a chunk of cash. And so you're like, am I going to be an agent to do that? That's what I thought I had to do. No, you can do assignments, you can do notes, you can flip houses, you can wholesale, you can do all kinds of different things to make a big chunk of cash to be able to then reinvest in other things, whatever it is. But being able to be independent for me started with being able to afford my own place, to live on my own and to kind of really reevaluate who I'm hanging out with and have peace and time on my own to really think about, and I travel a lot too. So that's another thing that, being in real estate has afforded me, is to be able to go away for a while. And people think you're on vacation. They don't want to figure out the 9-hour time difference. So I'm like, nope, I'm over here like doing yoga, like thinking every day, like, okay, who's in my life? Who's using me? Who's helping me? Who really wants to see me do well? Who do I vibe with? That kind of thing. And so every time I come back from a trip, I'm like super clear on like who needs to go and who needs to stay. And that's really helped me to create independence of thought and, be able to create space independence, if you will. So that's, I guess, how it started. And now I'm basically able to, so you're moving then from being an employee, being under a broker. And it's interesting in real estate, depending on your brokerage structure. I had a really laid back broker. So he's like, you are a learning freak and just go for it, and if you have contract questions, legal stuff, ask, but, and I always ask questions. So it was an easy fit, but still I wanted to do my own thing. The real goal was to, like, if you've ever read Rich Dad Poor Dad or Cash Flow Quadrant, that's kind of where the first mind swap, that and The Secret, that's where like things kind of started changing. And it was all this alone time that I had where I needed to learn this stuff, where at first I thought it was stupid and hokey, but I'm realizing, no, what I really need to do is, okay, I'm free, I'm independent on my own now. Now I need to financially be free. And so I want cash flow coming into my accounts every month where it's passive, where I don't have to do anything and it still comes in. So then I can be a B-type business and I can disappear for a week or whatever and no one cares. Like I'm not running it all myself, it just runs. So that was really my next thing. And so doing a little bit of different things, I'm kind of testing right now to see like what works the best. Multifamily makes sense for generational wealth, and it makes sense for like the long game, and it's a slow game, but it's building, but in the meantime, I can do quick flips of stuff and kind of see how it's working. Like, I've got some house note partials that I've invested in, and those are already cash flowing month one, 8% every month. I have, the flip houses that I did, I ended up not wanting to deal with, I just rented them out. And so I have really great tenants in them that they do the yard work, they do everything. So it's pretty passive, but I do want to sell those pretty soon here, because not right now, the market's not good for it, but anyway, when I can, just because it could turn into a maintenance nightmare, or it could turn into tenants, toilets, termites, and right now it's good. But anyway, I'm seeing how that is creating a certain amount of cash flow that's coming in every month, net over, the mortgage, taxes, insurance, maintenance, and stuff you put aside for that. And then I just recently invested in a unidentified, mutually owned whole life policy that has a large funded cash value by overfunding the account. It's if you Google infinite banking, it's that concept of using that type of strategy where you can put money into one of these types of life insurance accounts, get it to have a larger cash value quicker than you normally would, where it's normally 3 to 10 years it takes. But anyway, you'd have that money to be able to reinvest. So it's making a return sitting in the account as a like 4 to 5%, life insurance policy. And then the cash value of it, you can lend out, so you can become your own bank. And so you can lend it out to yourself. You can lend it out to your own companies, and it's a protected, anyway, I could get into it forever, but that's the newest thing that I'm like, let's try this. And I interviewed 10 people that they've been doing it since the 80s. So I'm like, all right, well, let's give it a shot. And for me right now, I'm single. I don't have any kids. And if I lost everything, I don't care. I can still go bartend. And then again, you learn some lesson and then you go at it again. So it's not like a scary thing, but I'm trying to learn how to have as much cash flow every month coming in from these different projects so that I can just like, hey, it's Monday, I'm going to go to Mexico. Bye. Like, that's really my goal, is freedom of time.
No, I love the whole appeal of passive income. The cash flow quadrant you mentioned, I love that book. To me, that one was really kind of solid. The Rich Dad, Poor Dad, it made sense to me, but it didn't speak as clearly as the cash flow quadrant did to me,
right.
which I totally appreciate those reference points. I want to ask you, you're in a business that historically has been kind of the white male, middle-aged male kind of business. In the beginning, you'd mentioned how this event you were at was a bunch of women kind of thing. I'm kind of curious if you could describe kind of what you've seen and what your friends and your peers see, and if you've been able to convey to them the opportunity, and there are people that are coming into it, because I think that anybody that's in the business recognizes kind of the lack of really active, presence of women in the business.
Yeah, in commercial real estate, it is like a good old boy network type thing. And I think that my brand and the way that we're doing things is like it's the perfect time right now, because there's so many things, honestly, going on in the legal world right now for the last couple of years where, sexual assault cases and things like that people are calling it out. Like, women aren't afraid to speak up anymore. And it's not that, so that's kind of, and the Me Too movement and all this stuff is just starting this. It's okay to talk. It's okay to say what's on your mind. It's okay to not have to hide. And so I think that just translates to every industry, period. Even like I have a podcast, Number One Leading Ladies, and I've interviewed people that are the number one engineer at Lockheed, or somebody that has an ice cream shop, or somebody that does multifamily real estate investments, or whatever. But it's about ladies, and I just think it's the right time right now, and there is a need for it. I don't think that I want to be that person that's going to change that. I want to be that one person that when they think of change, to do that, to add more women into real estate, commercial, anything, that like, that's me, So it's a good time right now for that, I think.
No, that's awesome. And you said your podcast, Number One Leading Ladies, was that right?
Yeah, and it's like hashtag, like number,
okay,
and then one, like the number one, not ONE. Yeah, so hashtag one, Leading Ladies. Yeah.
That's awesome. Hey, Kaylee, if we could, I'd like to shift gears for a second here. I mentioned to you before we started recording how by day I'm an insurance broker. And there's a couple of different strategies we use when we're doing risk management with my clients. The first option is, can we avoid the risk? The second option is there a way to minimize the risk? And then third, is there a way to transfer the risk? And that's what an insurance policy is can you transfer the risk? And so anyway, I've been asking my guest, and I'd love to see if you'd be willing to participate. But I've been asking my guests if they would consider what they consider to be the biggest risk. And if you're willing, I'd like to ask you, Kaylee Mcmahon, what is the biggest risk?
I think the biggest risk at in what I do, multifamily investing, is making sure that the deal, the way that you buy it, because like honestly, the way you buy it means everything. I mean, if you don't buy it right, sorry, sucker. Whether it's you're not operating it right. The point is you want to buy it at the right price to where there's a margin of error, there's a margin, like, so for example, if you screw something up, it's like, okay, well, we have enough cash sitting over here, we can fix that problem. Or you want to be as far away from foreclosure point as possible. So and it's the same thing with what's going to happen here with the election coming and the economy changing. Everyone's freaking out, honestly, about the cycle changing and coming, and it should have already happened, honestly. And so I think what's going to happen, and I'm listening and you have to be aware. I think people are freaking out, and that's going to cause an issue. I don't think that there really is going to be an issue probably for another 3 years, but I think because people are preemptively freaking out, I think something's going to happen like in the next 12 months, 12 to 24 months, honestly. But I'm just going to go ahead and assume 12 months, worst case, or best case, or whatever, and prepare for that. So to mitigate the risk, what's cool about apartments, I'm going to read this line from this book. I just spoke at a trust company today, and I was like, hey guys, like, multifamily real estate is so cool because of this statistic right here. So I'll read it for everybody. So this book is awesome. I don't know if you can see it, but it's The Perfect Investment by Paul Moore. And it's great for my passive investors. I give it to all of them so they can see why this is so different than single family. So the multifamily delinquency rate at its peak was 90% lower than the residential rate in most of the downturn since the Great Depression. So meaning that Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, non-recourse loans, they do so much due diligence on the operators, the deal itself, everything. I mean, I just signed on a Freddie loan last week, for this deal that we're doing now, and they just have to vet all of us. We have to do an organization chart. We have to give them our track records. I mean, on and on and on. So it's not, I can't say the word safe, but I mean, you have to mitigate risk. And so just knowing that, that is happening because of the way that they're underwritten. A lot of my passives love non-recourse loan debt on the deals that they might invest in because they know that's the case. So that's one thing I'll point out as far as the difference between single and multi that helps just inherently avoid some risk. Then for us, we have to underwrite the deal conservatively. So everybody and their mother is going to say, oh, I'm conservative, la, la, la. Like, what does that mean? It's not I'm conservative like I'm a Republican. What it means is, like I've said, okay, so if you look at the market vacancy, the market rent, the market's expenses, and some other things, we'll just stick with those for now. What is the market bearing right now? What has it done in the last 3 years? What has it done at its worst? And what could it do? Because I don't have a crystal ball, but there's some economist friends of mine and some friends that have been in the biz for a long time. And I kind of use these stress tests, if you will, to test the deals. And if they pass these tests, then I feel comfortable moving forward with that deal. Because like I was saying, if you set it up right, you're going to make it through a recession versus, the single family goes like this, and you just have to ride the wave. And I don't want to ride the wave, and I don't want my people to ride the wave. I don't buy these outright with my own cash. I use investors' money to invest, so we have to buy them right, because I would die if somebody was like, oh, I gave you my educational savings account for my child, or I gave you my retirement for my whole life. I would literally die if I ever screwed someone over by not doing my due diligence. So one thing I build into the underwriting on a deal is you want to look at the market vacancy. So for me, I go ahead and say, okay, let's look at the deal if we have to drop the rent or if we have to increase vacancy 10%. So I do that, and then I take the rent number or the rent amounts we think we can get, and when I reduce that 10, actually no, I take the actuals, what it's doing today, not what we think we can, which is T12, but on the actuals, what it's doing today, I take that down 10%. Let's decrease rents 10% because we have non-recourse debt on these loans, right? So they require that we keep the student population under a certain percentage, that we keep the occupancy over a certain percentage, that we meet these certain, things to keep the loan, to keep qualified for the loan. So there might be a time period where people aren't getting jobs and they're losing jobs and they don't have enough money to pay rent. And so to keep them in there and to keep our occupancy high enough to stay in that loan and not make it a recourse loan, we may have to drop the rents enough or an amount. So worst case, vacancy goes up 10%, rents decrease 10%. That's a really good spread that I use to see how far it is above, over the debt service, what we have to pay, and then plus the bill to keep the lights on. One thing that I guess I automatically do this, but somebody else brought it up. Hey, I check out the expenses, and I use the expenses at the same rate of growth. So like if to expense growth, every year expenses are going to increase. And so I say, okay, we're going to go 2% every year. We're going to go at the rate of growth at 2% every year. So I think that's reasonable. It's not super low. Some people do like 1% or whatever. It's at the rate of growth, which is a wash. It makes sense. Anyway, I could talk on this forever, but there's several stress tests that we put our deals through to make sure that we can ride out a recession, which I think is the biggest risk. There.
No, your analysis there of buying right, I think where you started is really kind of the key.
Yeah.
I can attest to having bought wrong and bought right, and buying right's a whole lot better than buying wrong. So that's great. Kaylee, where can the listeners go if they'd like to learn more or connect with you?
If you can, email me, admin@theapartmentqueen.com. That is the best way to reach me, or check out some of our content at theapartmentqueen.com or on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, wherever else it is. I don't know. It's called Number One Leading Ladies. It's our podcast. Women helping build each other up instead of tearing each other down.
Awesome. Kaylee, I can't say thanks enough for taking the time. I've enjoyed it and learned a lot, and hope we can do it again soon.
Absolutely. Love to be on your show again.
All right. For our listeners, if you like this episode, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Remember, the more you know, the more you grow. That's all we've got this week. Until next time, thanks for listening to Commercial Real Estate Pro Network's CREPN Radio.